I'm Sam Milam. I'm Development Director for Ronald McDonald House Charities of Southern Colorado, and I've held the position for nearly 13 years.
Wonderful. And how did you first become interested in your career?
I have been doing communications for a long time. And so sometimes that looked like working in communications with Fox 21. Other times that was doing development for other organizations. And for me, it really stems from wanting to know people's story and sharing that with others. So being able to be a good listener and to check in and learn sort of the struggle that people are going through, and then being able to share that with others. I think I've been a storyteller since I was in the 5th grade. I remember my teacher saying, wow, you can really tell a good story. So for me, it really just grew from there. And whether I was teaching workshops in our community or working on behalf of people who had some pretty severe needs and needed help in other directions, even volunteering for Pikes Peak Hospice, I've always been able to ask a lot of questions and then share a story in a way that encourages other people to get involved. So hopefully I've done that justice in each occasion, to be able to find something that's compelling about each person's story, because the truth is all of us are compelling and unique, and we have our own individual story, and to be able to share that with a larger audience. I think to be part of communications, right, is to first of all be a good listener, to have a big heart that's able to embrace lots of different folks where they are, and then to be able to, again, share that on a larger platform. Part of being development director is to raise awareness and raise funds. And part of raising awareness for me is sharing the story and sharing the mission. And often when people hear what it is that our organization does, they say, oh my gosh, yes, I want to get involved. You know, I want to find a way to do that. So being able to share of your heart and to share of their experience in a way that honors them and also helps benefit them in their situation. So Colorado Springs is second per capita to Washington, D.C. for the number of nonprofits in a community. And thus, you know, we've got a lot of organizations here doing really great work. The starting salary that's typical for our area for a development director is around $62,000, and then it goes up from there. So obviously, if you're in a larger market, there are other dollars that you could pursue. Let's see, what do I want to say about that? I love our work environment. It's unusual. The Ronald McDonald House is a really big house. It's a home for up to 20 families who have critically or seriously ill children. So we have a small yet very dedicated staff that really are like a family. Lots of us have been there for more than 10 years, all pulling in the same direction to really keep critically ill children and their families together when they need it most. So the culture is very strong amongst our small staff, and then we have just hundreds of volunteers who are really amazing, and they come there out of the goodness of their heart because they want to help, not because there's a paycheck in it for them. So it's really, it just has intrinsic value. So as far as sort of the basis there, it's a very strong group. And then there are the families themselves. So you know, some families will stay with us for several months, depending on the severity or the illness that their child has. And we really get to know them as people, and they become our families as well. And we love on them. You know, part of our mission is to take care of every one of their needs, so that their only focus is to be with their little guys and help them get well. So we support that, and we love on them in that way. So The work environment, it can look a little bit different every day because there's often families coming or going, right? So meeting new families and coming alongside them and supporting them in whatever ways that they need, not just with a room and with food, but taking care of them emotionally, spiritually, physically, right? Taking care of all of their basic needs. So that can fluctuate depending on who you have in the house. And as far as work hours, I am a full-time position. So typically that looks like 40 hours a week, but sometimes there's outliers to that, right? If there's something unique that's going on or there's an event, but of course I'm going to be there for that. And so sometimes some of that work can spill over a bit, but typically it's about 40 hours a week.
And can you walk me through what a typical day in your job would look like?
For sure. A typical day is that I drive to the new Ronald McDonald house that's right next to Children's Hospital, Colorado Springs. And I come in and I say good morning to whoever is there as an early riser, look at the board and see what families are still there, and connect with them as I see them as well. But part of, again, development and part of communications is to create relationship with other people, to maintain that relationship, and to grow that relationship. So I spent a lot of time reaching out to donors and to others and sharing our mission or inviting them to come in and take a tour or telling them how their dollars are helping and sharing a family's experience. So there's a lot of communication that happens in this position. And then there's just, some administrative stuff, right? Like sometimes the not as much fun parts are grant writing and trying to secure dollars that way. For my particular nonprofit organization, I'm one of 365 throughout the world, ours being the 101st, but we raise 100% of our funding from our community. So it's just a lot of outreach. So sometimes that's with individuals, sometimes that's with corporations and businesses, sometimes that's with foundations or events that we host in-house or third-party events where other people host an event but say that they want us to receive the proceeds. So just working within all of those realms. Gosh, a benefit is just knowing that a family has breathed easier because myself and our staff care enough, right? Like, we really do care. We get super attached to all of these families because the truth is not one of them has asked to be there. It really is that disease, illness, accident, injury, unfortunately, they come for all of us, and no one asks for that. But for each of these families, we're at more than 10,500, right, in 34 years. For each of them, they're so thankful that there's a place. And so where they can be within eyesight and walking distance of their critically ill child. So a great benefit is just knowing that you're providing a service that helps keep families together when they need it the most. There's no other place that a family would be than by their child's bedside, and there's no other place that the child needs their family to be than right by their bedside. So for sure that's a benefit. And I would say a challenge is that probably some days are just hard. The majority of those that we work with get well and go home, and of course we celebrate. And then there are others for whom the disease or the illness, accident or injury, where it has changed the course of their life, and there will be the new normal for that family to embrace. And we walk through that with families as well, and then sadly even with the families for whom their little one passes away much too soon. So certainly those are challenging days, and even in that, those families are so appreciative that, if it is indeed last minutes or last hours, that they got to be right where they wanted to be, which was right with their child, loving on them and supporting them. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Being a development director or someone in communications and in the nonprofit realm, for me, fits very well with family life. And so what that's looked like for me is I've got I call her my little one. She just turned 18, so she is not so little. But she was little when I started full-time with this organization. And because we work with families and we have our own families, we are very, very family-oriented and have somewhat of a flex schedule. So I would leave work, come pick her up from school, and then, she and I might grab a warm drink together, and she'd come back to the office with me and do her homework while I did my work. And so she essentially grew up at the Ronald McDonald House, getting to know all of the families and the staff and volunteers. And sometimes, she would, when she was very little, say, "Oh, Mom, I need to go to the bathroom." I was like, "Sure." And then I would realize she'd been gone for a while, and I would come downstairs at our old Ronald McDonald House, and she would be entertaining the staff in the office, and I was like, oh my gosh. So family for all of us has been very unique, and I can't speak for every nonprofit, but for ours, certainly it's compatible with family life. Let's see, favorite aspect would have to be getting to know all of the families and walking beside them and having the privilege and the honor of being able to interview the families and then share their stories, And so I want to be clear in that. We reach out to families to ask if they would like to share their story, because it's theirs. It's uniquely theirs. And they're already in a place of struggle, And so by no means do we want for them to feel like, oh gosh, now I have to do this thing. But a lot of families are so appreciative of having a safe, comfortable, warm place to stay and all of their meals provided, where if they don't have a car, if they came via ambulance or Flight for Life, they can walk to the hospital because they can see it out their window. They're so thankful that they get all of this at no charge to them, that they're like, oh my gosh, I want to tell my story. So it's just an honor and a privilege to be able to interview them and learn their stories, and then to furthermore be able to share that, with those in the community for whom that resonates. They say, oh my goodness, yes, I want to help. Like, I'm not sure how, but maybe it's that I write you this check, or I'm going to come to this event, or I want to volunteer, or I'm going to bake brownies, however it is that people come alongside, we are just blessed. I don't know that a career in development and or in communications would necessarily change. There will always be a need for my nonprofit, for the Ronald McDonald House. There will always be need. It was Dr. Audra Evans, who was a pediatric oncologist with Philadelphia Children's Hospital, who dreamed of there being a temporary home away from home for families who had critically ill children. And in 1974, that dream became a reality. And now that there's 366 houses, it shows that there's for sure need, right? Like, sadly, there are children who are ill all around the world, and not just like broken arm ill, but like really, really seriously ill or critically ill, so that there will always be a need for this kind of work. And as long as we have a need for this kind of work, there's going to be a need for somebody to fundraise and to ensure that the dollars are there for those families to be able to stay. It's of note that a full 80% of the families that we serve live at or below the poverty level. And I don't mean in any way to intimate that that means only kids from lower socioeconomic households get sick. It's that these households perhaps had means once, maybe savings even, but to get a life-altering diagnosis and mounting hospital bills and wondering how on earth they're going to be able to take care of, first of all, their child and then their livelihood. So, ensuring that those families have a place to stay and that they don't have to pay will always be a need. Advice. I would probably just say, keep your hearts and your ears open, listen well, and then follow the lead of your heart in sharing what you know to be true. Whether that's me sharing a family story with the media that then they can share with their audiences, or me having coffee with a donor one-on-one and letting them know how their dollars are making a positive impact in the lives of others. I think that the advice would just be to keep your heart open, and also to guard your heart, because some days are really, as I shared earlier, some days are hard, but it's all really worth it. It's important work, and if somebody wanted to fall into this work, I would encourage them, because I feel like I get more than I give every day. Yeah.
Meet Elizabeth Bailey. At age 4, she was a seemingly normal, active, and vocal young girl. Then, suddenly one day, she couldn't swallow and began choking.
We rushed her to the emergency room, and they discovered a large mass on her brainstem.
Her and I were flight for life to Denver Children's Hospital, and from there, our journey started.
3 years later, Elizabeth is still fighting for her health. Because of the location of the tumor at the brainstem and spinal column, she has been paralyzed 3 times, forcing her to relearn to walk and regain control of her vocal cords. But Elizabeth just won't give up. Every day, she works very hard to regain her strength.
They come and they are crying and they tell you your child has cancer, but what they don't tell you is you're going to lose your life as you know it. And that's really what's happened to us. Everything that we thought was who we were has changed. We filed bankruptcy, we lost our house in Pagosa Springs, and our kids have changed schools 3 times because we keep going wherever Elizabeth can get the best care.
Long periods of separation were tough on the Bailey family while Elizabeth sought treatment and care in distant cities. Her family found a welcome home and more at the Ronald McDonald house in Colorado Springs.
When we met the Baileys, they were in a place where they were really gasping for air, wondering what the next step would be, what did it look like, how would their family stay together, and Ronald McDonald House Charities was able to provide that for them.
They said, hey, bring the family here for Elizabeth. It's okay. I think that kind of helped her even have that more of a fight to survive.
One of the things that we say at the Ronald McDonald House is that kids get better faster when their families are with them. So for them to be separated was really difficult. And when they were all able to come together and be a family again, it felt like they all just breathed a sigh of relief, like, oh my gosh, we are home.
There was no pressure. Everything that we needed was there, and we were just able to just relax and focus on our kids.
Mommy, do princesses wear headphones?
Elizabeth's time at the house fortified not only her family, but Elizabeth's body and spirit. Wanting to walk on her own again, her persistence paid off.
Every day, Elizabeth would laboriously just put one foot in front of the other, trying to relearn to walk.
With her sweet, sweet smile and seeing her struggle with her walker, she said, I don't need help. I can do this.
I'll never forget the day that I was sitting in my office upstairs and there was Elizabeth at the other end, and her bright red hair and toothless grin were just beaming as she simply put one foot in front of the other to make her way down to me. And it took a long time, but it was glorious.
With Elizabeth gaining more skill and control, the Baileys are slowly returning to a more balanced family life.
With Ronald McDonald House, you belonged somewhere. We were able to get better focused on what we needed to do to go on with life. All you can do is say thank you, and that just doesn't seem like enough.
Thank you, Mommy.